Mr. Ashbourne, you were talking to me about excellence, and you say it's too wide a term. What do you think of as excellence?
Well, in Jamaica, I think excellence is overused. I think it is. Everything is being called excellent, you know, genius, all these terms. And what has happened now is that excellence has come to include the mediocre. So I think we need to narrow it a little bit. You know, we need to be able to discern from the mediocre, the competent, the good, and the excellent, you know.
Thank you. Now, why and how did you decide to become good at what you are so passionate about, music?
Well, I didn't really decide. my aunt, who was a music teacher, discovered that I had a good ear. So she and my mother decided that I do the violin. This was decided for me. And after that, I suppose it came a little more easily, because music came easily to me. So, you know, you're good at something and you're a tiny child, you know, you do it.
Why do you think Jamaicans can be excellent right here in Jamaica?
Jamaicans can be. Jamaica, the Jamaican culture and the Jamaican nation is no different from any other in terms of the distribution of people, you know, with talent, and average people, and, you know, people who have standards. But sometimes we suffer from exactly what they used to talk about, insularity, right? And I like to say that if all Jamaicans, every single one of us, could get to leave Jamaica for 2 days even, we get a better sense of perspective, you know, of how we fit into the rest of the world, and how our attitudes are vis-a-vis the rest of the world, and what, you know, how things work. We'd all have a better understanding of what we need to do to make the society better, you know, and save the children, you know. Don't forget the children. I'm trying not to sound like that. But
No, but it's attitude you're after.
yeah.
What are some of the things you depended on, or who did you depend on to become good at what you did? You were telling me about government, you were telling me about parents, you were telling me about relatives,
Yeah, well,
and you told me about yourself.
Yeah, well, my mother is probably the one. You know, she was one of those Jamaican women, you know, is driven. She's a little different because her generation, I think, was expected to stay in Jamaica, be a housewife, teacher, nurse, that kind of thing. And she went to England and did economics. And she was, in company with the people who became the leaders of Africa, and the leaders of Jamaica too, because there's a certain generation that she and was familiar with, you know, the Norman Manley, the Buster Mantitaceous Golding, that kind of thing. And so she belonged to that era, but she believed in the academics.
Very good. All right. So, what or whose ideas inspired you in pursuing this gift that you have?
All right. It came easily, so I think I wanted to do it. You know, it was easy to do and it was fun to do. But I had to. What you need to do for this type of stuff is you need to advance your craft. You know, your actual how you do the stuff. And to this end, there was a man called David Hamill, who was, I think he was one of those sort of returning Jamaicans. You know, you spend 35, 40 years in England, and then you come to Jamaica to, you know, live out a retired life, you know. And he came back to Jamaica. He was an amateur violinist. He tried to start a youth orchestra. That failed. But what he did instead was he sat on my veranda for 3 or 4 nights a week and taught me music theory. And it was wonderful. It was one of the reasons why my theory base is so solid.
So, are you perfect?
No, I don't. every time, especially with music, I mean, there are, you know, practically every other subject is like this, but the more you learn, the more you realize how large a subject it is and how much more there is to learn. You know, the more you learn is the less, the more you realize how little you know.
So if you failed, or when you failed, did it teach you anything? And what did it teach you?
Yeah, failure teaches you, first in a direct sense, if you're sensible about it, if you come out of it alive, first of all, right? But if you're sensible about it, you say, now why did that happen? So you can analyze and try and make sure it doesn't happen again. And the other thing it does, which is what happens in Jamaica anyway, failure keeps you humble, you know. It makes you realize that you're human.
And you were telling me about some challenges that you faced. Some were financial and some were keeping in contact with your own culture while you were cross-fertilizing abroad. So tell me about those challenges.
Well, before I went to college, you know, between my high school and going to college, which was about a year, a couple of years, I had already started to do some activity. You know, I got a job down at Federal Records, right? And that's where I learned about recording, you know, learned in a practical sense, you know, not book learning. I learned it on the job. And I was also started doing music for advertising. And I discovered that I could do it. And I had the skill set that could make me do it quite successfully. And so now when I was shipped off to college, what I would do is there was so much work going around that I'd get a job, go to college, and the job would pay for my airfare to come back and do another job. Spend some time here and then go back to school. So I never really lost touch with Jamaica and the culture.
Right? And you were saying you had family support and role models. Just list them for me, who these people were.
Well, my mother, right? You know, the good old Jamaican woman with ambition, that kind of thing. And one of a role model, strangely enough, not just in the area, was Bobby Gisses, the dramatic, the theater director, right? He shaped, I think, my values far more than I realized. Just a few years ago, I realized how much of an influence he was on me, because I was just getting into theater. I'd done a little bit of theater, but when I got into theater, met Bobby Gisses, pretty rapidly I discovered I knew nothing, right? And so my association with him allowed me to first of all, to learn how theater went, and I think one of the things he taught me, which I was kind of doing myself, was attention to detail. And he had a photographic memory. So, you know, you just confronted with this extremely competent person, you know, just going ahead. It was quite a bit of an inspiration for me too.
And sir, lastly, as a teacher of some excellence, if you had one thing you could pass on to say to people who want to become good at whatever they want to do the best they can, what would you tell them?
First of all, the world is extremely competitive. We're getting more and more people, so therefore you're getting more and more good people, right? So it's extremely competitive. If you want to do something, you'd better make sure you're good at it. You have to do it because there is so much competition. Secondly, you don't give up. You need persistence because the world is more complicated too. Thirdly, for some people, for quite a few people, it can help to find a niche, to find, because if you do a subject, for instance, you know, I don't know, chemistry or something, there's a lady in South Africa. She did South Africa, all of a sudden, she's a chemist, but she just decided to go out in the bush and find the bushes and make sense, make essences. And she first of all started selling her extracts, you know, all over the world, and then she started making her own perfumes, you know, things like that. You know, there are things like that we can take advantage of in Jamaica. You know, we have assets.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashbourne. Smash it.
Good.